We're live. Hey,
Hello.
Brian Kelly and John Kennedy. What's going on?
Hi.
Hello.
Just chilling, doing
Yeah,
stuff, things.
I'm back from Minnesota. That was all right, I guess.
I uh I saw the talk that you gave at the BCSO thing. It was good. I enjoyed it.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I got after like well, I don't know how many slides it was to do I had to fill in really quick for that which one? Cryptography. And that's like I don't know how many damn slides that is, but the last thing I wanted to do after that was create slides for that talk. So I was like, we're just going to do it without slides and just talk from the shoot from the hip.
Cool.
I have no idea how it went, but I was kind of half asleep too.
Yeah, you did well. Although I will say that Ben killed it with his tabletop exercise. I don't know if you were able to stick around for that part.
Yeah,
Um,
he always does. Yeah, I saw that. He was nervous. He kept he kept looking at me. I was like, "Don't look at me, man. You're killing it, dude."
yeah. That guy's always a pleasure to work with, and I've thoroughly enjoyed that what he was doing there.
My
So
mom's down here in Mexico. She came in today, and first thing she says to me is she like taps my belly and goes, "What's with this?" And I'm like, "What?" She's like, "You need to lose some weight." I'm like, I'm going to put you right back on a damn plane and send you back to the United States. Get the hell out of here. I don't need that. Or do I? Maybe I do need that.
you didn't seem big in the video that or the recording, not the recording in the live session. So
No, I think it's just my mom, and I'm an only child, so she has nowhere else to put it. So she decided to put it on me.
gotcha.
Yeah, but seriously, I might send her back if she keeps that up.
So I went up to see my parents, and for Mother's Day, they live far enough away where if I go see them, I have to like spend a night. It's too far to drive both ways in one day, and
Mhm.
it's great because my dad he cooks everything. He does all kinds of stuff, and my mom just goes crazy when I'm there because and it's nice because I enjoy their company and kind of just hanging out. And they live in an area that's rural, so it's nice looking out from the kitchen window when I was helping them do dishes and seeing like fields of stuff growing and such, which
Mm.
you don't see that around where I live.
Okay, cool. Cool. So Christoph recorded this one. Did you listen to the recording?
I, I did.
Was it better than the first one?
Yeah, he was there. He was on camera, talking through it and such. So it was a good one. I enjoyed
It's
it.
funny.
But
It's funny because this is the new format. The first time doing it this way, and it's just going to get better. I mean, every time you do the first thing or something, you're going to have wonkiness for sure. And the first one, I think he was just a kind of, we're security people. I'm not like a video producer guy, so you know, I'm uncomfortable talking in front of a camera, honestly. And so, trying to get the AI to do it for you, I can totally see how, he was trying to do that. And then I think the second, I don't know, it seemed like you guys tell me, like, was the second group I did, like the cryptography one, was that better than the first one that I did? Or would you say, because it felt like I was a little bit better? Because I think, when I get to the networking one, hopefully we'll nail it a little bit.
yeah, it's hard to tell. I think that, I mean, to me, and the
Mm-hmm.
first one was good. The second one was good as well. So
Are
there's
you
nothing
just
that I
saying
could say.
that? You
No,
just
I'm not. I'm
here,
not.
Evan. Let me stroke your ego. Hey, you're good. You're
Hey,
not
hey,
fat like your mom said. You look like you're in really good
you know
shape.
what? I don't have to take this from you. I'll kick you out of here.
You-
Although I don't
that'd
think
be
I can.
fine. I can go take a damn nap. It's all good.
So,
All right.
no,
So what
and
was? Oh, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, honestly, I I found it, both of them were good. All of them have been good so far. So that you've done. So, um, yeah, which I mean, for those of you guys in chat, if you guys would you guys agree? Was it good, or do we have any criticism for Evan that he needs to take into account for the next one?
Constructive criticism. Evan does have an ego, so don't rip me too much on this. But we do want to make it better. I think continually improving. We want people to get value out of this. Even though you're not spending money, necessarily on this, you're spending time. I think that's more expensive. So we want to make sure that we learn from this. Because I think last year and the year before, we'd done it that way for so long. I think you kind of just had your rhythm and it wasn't nearly so disruptive. But this time, it's a different way of doing it. But I think it's going to, and the reasons why we're doing it this way, I think I've mentioned already, we want to make this more of an ongoing thing rather than doing it just sort of once a year and you have to wait for every spring in order to do this. I think we can reach more people, help more people if we do it continually throughout the year. So when you create the content, you record it, and then you just do these, weekly, mentoring kind of things. It's less time consuming. I think it scales a hell of a lot better. So, I think we'll just continue to get better at it.
Yeah.
So what did Chris teach?
So Chris taught security models.
Oh God.
And, and then physical security. Those were our two subjects for the week.
Okay.
Before we dig in, though, I do want to touch on something that was asked in Discord about Coinbase, which basically there was a breach of information, or someone stole information, I think is more proper to say. They sounds like they either bribed an employee or some sort of social engineering. I don't know the exact information. I read a couple articles about it. The question that came up from it was that Coinbase is offering a bounty on the people for information as to basically identifying who those people were that did this. Because basically people tried to blackmail them and say like, hey, give us money or else we're going to release this information, where Coinbase turned it around and said, well, hey, we're going to offer a bounty on these guys to lead us to them, sort of thing. So the question was, is that a right thing to do? Now, I might have been reading between lines in the comments in Discord, was that the idea was that Coinbase was putting it out there so people would say, for instance, like hack them or figure out who they are in that sense. Where more when I read it was that Coinbase was working with, say, like the FBI to identify these people, and they were offering a bounty for information leading to identification and arrest of these people. So two different things there. So I don't know if the person who is asking is in chat and can give clarification on that part, but the way that I read it was just kind of standard, like, hey, there was a murder recently, and we're offering money if someone can lead us to, like, or give us information that will lead to a conviction of this person, basically. That's the way that I read it. So I don't know, John or Evan, are you guys familiar with this scenario or this case?
That's what the bounty was. It was a $20 million bounty for information leading to the arrest and conviction of the perpetrators. And that's totally what it is. They've always had a bug bounty program. They've not always, but for years with HackerOne, in their partnership with HackerOne, they've always had a bug bounty program. This is a separate thing, right? It's a bounty, and it was announced by their CEO. I don't remember his name, but yeah, $20 million. Interesting story, but that's the thing. Like, there's some cultures, especially when you have international companies and you have, customer service or tech support or development work being done in different parts of the world. Some cultures are just way more susceptible to bribery than others. Take Mexico. I don't think Mexico. Well, maybe. I guess it depends on who you're targeting. Like law enforcement generally is more susceptible to bribery here in Mexico than they are in the United States, as one example. And the reason for that is it's culturally sort of almost expected, not accepted, but expected. Police here are paid, terrible wages, and they're disrespected. So they're ripe for bribery. So I mean, I think if you're a company who's going to be employing resources outside of the United States, you need to be aware of those things. I think you need to understand the culture that you're operating in, and adjust for it. We've employed developers from Bulgaria, India, I don't know, other Eastern European places. And you just do a little research on, what that culture is, a little bit of OSINT, and then just, pay attention, keep an eye on it. But I think a lot of countries just, they're so enamored by the cheap labor, they just jump on it. And, you have to get information security involved, like we said all along, early on in the process, so that we can, adjust and account for those risks that you're introducing.
Someone asked in the chat, a question: is that the right thing to do from a security perspective? Asking the general public to hack criminals, and I definitely don't think that it is. But I was wondering, Evan, if you could kind of pontificate on that and how it intertwines with, the code of ethics that goes with CISSP.
Yeah, that's a good question, man. We do a lot of things. Here's a couple things about the law. The law is so outdated, right? Take something like I had posed last year, maybe 2 years ago on LinkedIn. Is it legal and or ethical to do vulnerability scans and attack surface analysis on organizations and IP address ranges that I don't have, nobody gave me approval to do that? And it was a really interesting discussion because, one, it's not illegal. Should it be? I don't know, but it's not illegal because it's publicly accessible information. The only way it would be illegal, and it's all based on precedent, so you'd have to wait for somebody to be prosecuted on this, which nobody really has. So, you can debate it all day long. But it's only illegal if you bypass security controls, like hack something, exploit a vulnerability, or degrade service. DOS somebody on accident with one of your vulnerability scans or something. Is it ethical? I think it depends on, when you talk about ethics, it's like, what's the reason behind it, the motivation behind it? And this came up because I was doing Project Broken Mirror, which you'll hear about more later because I've picked that back up again. But Project Broken Mirror came from, I get frustrated, I think, with the government and the fact, like CISA, for instance. Actually, I was sitting with somebody. We do a lot of posturing in the industry, and one of the guys said, "I've consulted the last 4 presidential administrations on how to secure critical infrastructure." And so I said, "Well, that's great. Pat your back. Has the security of critical infrastructure gotten any better since you started consulting presidents?" To which, I got a bad word. He was mad about that question. But, he brought up another, the follow-up was, well, what would you do? And I'm like, well, when you think about like what's the most significant risk to critical infrastructure, I think you have to start with like, what's the most common method of exploit, right? It's something with single factor authentication still, right? And so, like, I would map the attack surface of the entire United States and look for anything that's single factor authentication and either turn it off, inform somebody to either turn that off or secure it with multi-factor. That would be just a start. Like, you can't do what we've traditionally done, which is like, here's NIST CSF, here, do this. It's overwhelming. You have to meet people where they're at. People can generally do 1 or 2 tasks, and beyond that, you lose them. So and I'm getting to the point here in a minute, promise. So, he's like, well, you can't do that. I'm like, well, why can't I do that? He's like, well, that's illegal. I'm like, no, it's not illegal. Well, it's unethical. Is it? I don't know. I did it, but I didn't have a repeatable process. So that's a whole nother thing that's coming, you'll hear about later on someday, but, on the same thing, going after an attacker, I've done it for sure. Is it illegal? No, I don't think so. Is it unethical? I guess it depends on who's talking. Yeah, that's a tough question, man. Ethics and information security and cybersecurity is really wonky.
Yeah, I guess where I was really trying to go with, and I apologize for the poorly worded question. I mess my order up at drive-throughs all the
No,
time.
you gave me a chance to ramble, so it was okay.
Well, the four canons of CISSP, I was thinking about specifically number 2 and number 4, which number 2 is act honorably, honestly, justly, responsibly, and legally. And then with number 4 being advance and protect the profession, knowing these canons, being able to recognize them, it's something that, I feel is important to, when it comes to test time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, good question.
I do want to ask, so coming from Splat, so Splat, where are you seeing that Coinbase is asking the public to hack the people that were trying to blackmail them? Because that's not the information that I read did not, to me, it did not read that way. It read they were putting, like I said, a bounty out there saying, if you can provide information of who these people are, then that's what they're looking for, not for you to go say, compromise their systems. So if you're reading something different than I am, let me know. I'd be curious, but I didn't see
Yeah,
it.
I didn't see anything publicly stating that.
Yeah.
20 million bucks. It's a lot of money though.
That is a lot of money.
Could buy myself a whole bunch of, I don't know what I'd buy. Maybe airplanes.
Airplanes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And you could get some pilots to go with it too for that amount, probably.
No. We're going to put paint. You heard this story, right? I want to buy a fleet of ultralights and mount paintball guns on them.
I have not heard that. No, it sounds like we need
you
to
have heard that?
now.
It's been a dream of mine for quite a while. $20 million would take care of that, and then some.
That would. Could I just, go and, use one of those paintball guns? I used to play a lot. It's been a while, but I wouldn't mind going out there and shooting some people with a paintball gun.
Well, first I have to find these people, I guess, and
okay.
Get the $20 million. But yeah, you could do whatever then. Kevin would buy a boat. That'd be a nice boat.
It would be a nice boat. All right, cool.
That's good. I mean, Coinbase is interesting. I mean, the things that are interesting about that, the fact that it was, you bribed insiders. That's not the first time that's happened, but I think it's the first time it's happened kind of on this scale and gotten this much, news attention. And the fact that the company announced the $20 million bounty for information leading to the arrest, as opposed to a law enforcement agency, is pretty rare. It's usually the law enforcement agency that puts up, the bounty.
Yeah. I thought that was interesting as well. All right. So in terms of our discussion, we'll throw it out there to those in chat. Does anybody have any questions related to the content? So we have physical security and security modules, chapters 8 and 10 in the book. If you want to get them out there so we can discuss those. Physical security is one of those areas that I enjoy because it's something tangible. I can be like, hey, you're doing this wrong because your network clause is not secured type of deal. Security models is not something that I'm super proficient in, which I'm not super proficient in a lot of stuff I'm finding. So, but any thoughts on security models that we wanted to hit in and kind of kick off the conversation?
Well, John, when you took the exam, do you recall how many questions you saw on security models? I mean, was it a pretty significant?
Gosh, it was such a blur. There was so much information in there. I felt that it hit a good, portion of all of the domains. Um, I,
Mhm.
I vaguely remember, I remember committing time to figuring out the different models, removing the antiquated terms like, we don't use Chinese wall anymore, just being able to identify them and apply those concepts, to the situations that I was given, but I can't remember specifically.
Mhm. Yeah. So what do you guys watched the video? Um, I did not, but from my own recollection of security models, over the years, Biba, Bella Padula, Chinese wall, um,
Clark
what am I
Wilson.
missing? Clark Wilson. And Clark Wilson like never comes up. I mean, it like I don't remember the last time I talked about Clark Wilson other than, what's in the book. Um, the thing I remember, the easy, mnemonic that I remember with Bella Padula and Biba is Bella Padula has an E in it. I'm sorry, Biba has an I in it. So that's about integrity. So Bella Padula is about confidentiality, right? So, because sometimes people get it mixed up, I think, like, oh shit, was Biba about confidentiality or integrity? It's got the I in it. So it's about integrity. Bella Padula is about confidentiality. So then when you just logically think through the read up, write down thing, you can kind of figure it out, right? Because I would be violating confidentiality if I have unrestricted access ability to write up, right? Because then I could take the information that's at my lower security. I'm sorry, I'm thinking about it the other way around. Write down, because then I could take the information that's at a higher security clearance level and write that down, right? So somebody else could access it. Does that make sense? But that's why I always think about Biba and Bella Padula and which way the information flows between security levels. Chinese wall is just what? That's just protecting against conflict of interest, mostly. There's the
It's
matrix one.
I know
I'm
that
going by memory here.
the Chinese walls, there's a new verbiage for it, which I was trying to
Oh, we can't,
find.
because we shouldn't call it Chinese, probably.
Yeah, I believe that is the case. Yes, I'm trying to find. I had the
There
slides
is a
somewhere.
Chinese wall. It's like this big, huge wall, right? I mean, it goes like thousands of miles.
I've seen it before when I was on rides at California Adventure or Disney World.
That wasn't the real Chinese wall.
Oh, it wasn't?
I
Oh.
don't think so. I don't know. Supposedly you
Uh,
can see it from space, right?
I don't know if that's true or not. I'm sure that there's people that have written articles about it. It doesn't seem like it's one of those things that you'd be able to see from there.
Let me ask ChatGPT while you go ahead and continue.
Cool. Well, I was trying to find the slides so I can get information up here. And I'm confusing myself. Um, where did you go?
Welcome to my world. All right, it's a myth. It says you cannot see the Great Wall of China from space with the naked eye. I could have swore last time I was in Earth orbit I saw it, but I guess not.
Do you say last time you were in Earth orbit?
Yeah, I could have
Do you
swore I
go
saw
there?
it.
Do you go there often or?
Yeah. I mean, what's often? Monthly? Yeah.
Yeah, monthly.
Mhm.
Uh,
Hanging out with
That's
Bezos.
Yeah.
That was the
I'm not
Brewer
a big.
Nash model, was the one formerly referred to as the Chinese wall.
okay.
Okay, so we don't call it Chinese wall anymore. We call it Brewer Nash.
That
Or
makes
Brewer
sense.
or Nash.
So, Christoph did have some really good visual aids in the slides, which if you guys haven't looked at them already, um, and he went through them and he explained the visual pieces to it as well, which is it was actually a really good explanation of it. I was as I was going through it and I had it on as I was doing other things, and when he started actually going through it, I did pay attention to it because these are complicated, and for the tests, these are extremely testable. I will say that I did have this on mine. I know I answered a few questions about this, and basically it was having me try and identify what they are based off of either this is what we want to do, so why is it, what sets it apart from the other ones, or this is information, so identify which one of these models we want to use. So
We should, Steve Ballard has a great idea. We should create the Crosby, Stills, and Nash model.
what about Young?
I don't know. Why not? Sure. We could add Young to it. That's, that you got to reach a certain level of maturity before you're going to add that.
Okay.
And then we could do the BG's model too.
Can we do a Zeppelin model as well?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yes.
Cool.
Metallica model. Let's just do all the rock groups model.
Okay.
Somebody was asking in the chat about they said that the zero trust overview was great and that they need pictures and real life examples. I can't do any pictures, but a real life example for me, 20 years in the military, when they instituted zero trust and we started having to put our pin in periodically throughout the day when you hadn't logged out your computer, that was the big, kind of aha moment for us, that zero trust was being implemented across the domain. So that's the only example that I know of.
Zero trust. What does the book say about zero trust? Because I didn't read that either.
It's a security concept where nothing and no person inside the organization is automatically trusted. There has long been an assumption that everything on the inside is trusted and everything on the outside is untrusted. This has led to a significant security focus on endpoint devices, the locations where users interact with company resources.
Okay.
Yeah. I can argue with that.
I just call it default deny. And then people say on what? Everything. Right? I mean, there's no longer any implicit trust. It's got to be explicitly defined anywhere. And true zero trust, right? It's application access between applications. It's user accounts, it's network traffic flows. I mean, it's truly everything. And it was funny. I had a discussion once with the state of Minnesota, the Blue Ribbon Commission on the state of Minnesota. They make recommendations to the governor, and there were 3 people that were that were invited to talk there. And one was from Dell, one was from Accenture, and then it was me. And both Dell and Accenture really pushed the zero trust thing, right, with the state of Minnesota. And the CISO asked the Accenture guy, who was the second person, that sounds great. Where do I get started? And the guy didn't really have an answer. He just kept going. And so I was giving the last presentation. So I added a slide to my deck. This is where you get started with zero trust. And it was, it's crazy how in this industry in particular, zero trust is constantly talked about. It's constantly marketed, yet nobody really is doing it. I mean, you might be making progress in certain areas, right? So you might be doing it from that perspective, but true zero trust, in most cases, there was a Blue Cross Blue Shield that I was working with that wanted to implement adversary obstruction, which was sort of like zero trust. I don't know if you ever read NSA's adversary obstruction document, but it's really about, it's about lateral movement within networks and things like that, and how, the zero trust model will make that happen. But they wanted to implement it. And when you did the analysis of like their current infrastructure and moving to this model, you come to the realization that it's better for you to just build a brand new infrastructure and just migrate over to it versus trying to retrofit this infrastructure that's been built loosely for so long. So I think, truly zero trust is going to, in a lot of cases, it's going to take that, just start over. But then business is in business to make money, right? Not to secure information. How expensive is that going to be? And how much buy-in are you going to get for that?
I was going to say that basically exactly that same thing is that with what we have in place now, because I can say from my my technical days, I don't know how many firewalls that I set up for an organization where that, oh, we don't need that, default denial on this. Like we're gonna, do something else on it, which was much less secure than that. And it's like, well, why would they even have this here? And now I've learned a lot since then, and now I understand. But it's almost like you just need to just start over again with zero trust rather than you know put it into an environment that already exists, especially because I work with clients that their networks have been around for 20, 25 years at this point. And the people that are managing them at this point, maybe 5 years, maybe longer, but they don't know what was done previous to that. They don't know
Right.
all those little ins and out at that point. So that's a very good point and way to look at it.
Yeah. And zero trust, I mean, for old timers, like this was a concept that was always there, right? When environments were simpler, uh, it was the way you implemented things, right? You only enabled things that actually required enablement, right? You turn off things like auto negotiation shit on your networks and, do it manually because you didn't trust any of the systems to do it. But things now have gotten so complicated, so to answer that question, when the CISO asked that question, where do I get started with zero trust? Asset inventory is a great place to start. You're going to have to know what you have in your environment, get rid of the crap you don't need, because trying to zero trust that stuff, you're going to need to have intimate understanding of yourself and of your network and of your architecture if you want to truly do it. But it's like, how do you eat an elephant, I guess, one bite at a time, take parts of your infrastructure, parts of your enterprise, environment, and work out from there maybe, or take your most critical, however you decide to prioritize your implementation, right? But yeah, it's disruptive if you want to do it right.
I think that there's a lot of pieces that if people wanted to do it right would be disruptive to their current environments, honestly, um, for either implementation or how are you doing things, even just looking at, say, the policies and procedure side of things, there's cultural changes that need to shift for organizations in a lot of cases, saying like, let's look at security, and let's build it out the right way. Um, in talking to the right people, asset inventories is a big piece to that. So that way
Mm-hmm.
you need to buy in from the C-suite. I think that you covered it in the beginning with uh, the the language of business is finance or accounting, and
Mm-hmm.
getting hey, we're going to have to spend time and money on this, probably more time than money, honestly, to make it happen. And time is going to cost you money. So and what's going to happen
Yeah.
in a year from now when we're still working on this project and it's not there, and the business doesn't see any sort of realization from it because it's still not there yet, and they've spent all this time on it, and resources.
Well, I told you about the story when I was asked at the board meeting, and I always remember it because it drove a lot of my career forward. When I was asked by the CEO, "Is this going to make us any more money?" Will zero trust make our organization any more money? If the answer is no, well then there's got to be a really, really, really good justification to compensate for that. If you could make you more money, well then it might be a no-brainer, but you're going to have to be able to support that with beyond opinion, which is the challenge, right? It might be the right thing to do from a security perspective, but as a security person, you also have to put your passion for protection, temper that a little bit, put it into context with all the other risks that an organization has to account for. So
So
that may be great. We could do zero trust and go out of business. Awesome.
a good question is zero trust a theoretical model where security personnel do it manually, or where do you go? Or are there tools that do it for you, basically? So the from what I've seen is there's a lot of people out here that will tell you, hey, we have a product and it'll do zero trust for you. I was gonna say I've
No.
never, yeah, too many people in security especially say like, hey, we've got this thing and you just plug it in and turn it on and it goes, and it never does. If
No.
anybody ever tells you guys that, make just go, okay, thanks, and turn away because they're lying to you. Um,
Yeah, certainly
'Cause-
parts of the process, I can leverage tools. It's like you know, will a bandsaw build my house for me? No, it's just you still need the carpenter. You still need the engineer, the architect, the architect. You still need these people to do actual work, and they'll leverage the tools to accomplish the task. But yeah, looking for the shortcut. Well, I just installed this thing, double click the thing, and I'm zero trust now. No, mm-mm, never. Well, not never. Just probably not in my lifetime. Because we just continue to add more technology way faster than our ability to use it responsibly. I mean, most people's architecture, there's very little control, and they continue to just implement new things. Not to mention it, I mean, and that's if you just go through the authorized way to purchase and implement things. But then you've also got the unauthorized way where people are using their own personal credit cards and expensing it later, or using corporate cards to throw shit on there. I mean, it's like you got to get governance straight. It's a lot of work. And no tool's going to do it for you.
Yep. So I know that I see a bit of talk about CrowdStrike and what happened, that's almost a year ago now. And sort of experiences with that of, not being able to do anything because systems were blue screening and stuff all over the place.
Right.
It's funny. I was off of work for the day and I was over at Disneyland and they were not affected at all by that, which I
That's
was
because they're
surprised by.
probably using Apple stuff.
Yeah. Well, I don't
Linux.
know about that, but more my thought was that they're probably using old stuff for all that stuff, all those rides and such. So I wouldn't be surprised if their technology was like from like the 60s, honestly, for a lot of that. But
Yeah, there's a lot of opinion, on CrowdStrike. I have my opinions. You know, they definitely screwed up. You know what I mean? That was a really stupid mistake. And it gives you some insight. But, I think most of the security companies in our market do the same kind of thing, So CrowdStrike makes a good tool that does certain things, I think really, really well. And you have, as the consumer, as somebody who purchases those things, why would you ever buy a tool if you don't know how to use it? If you don't know how to use it well, if you don't know how to implement it, manage it, you know, it's not the tool. Usually that's the problem. It's the people using the tools. There are tools out there that just plain don't work. And from a marketing perspective, I mean, you'll have CrowdStrike, you'll have, all the big players will say their tools do all these great things. Well, that's marketing. And if you can't read through the marketing fluff to actually know what the tool actually does, don't buy it until you figure that out. It's like AI, right? I mean, God, you got so many people using AI right now, and it's like, what are you doing with that? I have one person that was like using AI. Not one person. I heard it from friend, like third person, that there's this older couple that uses AI for like everything. Like, what should we do today? What should we have for dinner today? I'm like, no, it's not the proper use of the damn tool. Yeah.
I heard a CEO or CTO of some sort of a large, fairly common company speaking, and he was talking about AI and how if he wanted to drive any initiatives at the organization he worked at, all he had to do was say it was for AI, and basically they were good with it. If whatever he was proposing for, progressing the organization and their product, if it didn't have AI associated with it at that time, they weren't going to invest any money in it. Is what he was saying. I don't know how much of it was sort of a stretch of what they were saying, but I just thought it was interesting the way he was speaking about it.
Mhm.
Which it's crazy because there's some jobs out there right now where like they are during interviews they want to know what kind of AI you use for different things, and how you use it.
Mhm.
So
Yeah, whoever decided to give ChatGPT like some semblance of a personality, that's stupid. It's
so
a damn
I
tool. You know, I mean, it's math. Don't give me a personality. Give me answers to the questions I pose to you, and that's it. I don't want you to give me some opinion or telling me, "Hey, Evan, that's a great idea." I'm like, I didn't ask you for your damn opinion, ChatGPT.
there was a security group that's talking about how they've said that just people saying please and thank you to ChatGPT or
Right?
Copilot is costing them like millions of dollars because of the processing fee, like the processing it takes just to do that. It's not just
Well,
one
not
person
just
doing
that,
it. It's
but it's not a person. You know what I mean?
just
It's got no moral compass. It's got no like feelings, regardless of what it's showing you on the screen. Like you don't have to ask please. It's like me asking please for my oven to cook my chicken tonight. Would you please, go to 400 degrees? No, just
so,
push the damn button. Or toaster. Would you like to toast my bagel, please?
but people are doing it. Well, I just thought it was funny because it's just because I've used AI for a couple of things, and I rather than just saying give me this, I've said can you give me this, and it's just like that same thing. It's I'm just used to the way I request things, asking in that sense where you don't
Right.
have to do that. You just be like give me this. Heck, if you wanted to, you could probably even call it not nice names, and it probably wouldn't care or it wouldn't care because it can't care. But you could if you wanted to and just be like give me it, dang it.
Give me a
Yeah.
damn it.
Computers have better memories than my wife, so I'm going to always
Oh
say
yeah.
please and thank you because,
Oh,
like
to the
someone just
computer?
said in the chat, when they take over, I want to be remembered as one of the good ones.
No, I'm never going to answer to a damn machine. You can kill me. I'd rather die.
Evan's gonna
Nope.
be out here
It's not.
fighting Skynet.
It's not a world I want to live in, man. You know what I mean? I would seriously rather die than answer to a damn machine.
So
How
for
far? How
for
far we must have fallen.
yeah, I was just gonna say I for one welcome our AI overlords. So when this is eventually recorded and they don't come to kill me because I said that a couple times.
Hey, AI overlords, put this in your records. I think you suck. I'm not doing what you tell me to do. I'll give you
Oh,
my
so,
address. You can come send your little bots and take care of this.
yeah. So I really wish that Ryan was able to join us because I know that he's big on AI and he's more educated on as to what's going on there and the different aspects to it. To have a discussion with him
Mm-hmm.
on that. I was hoping to bring it up. I know that we had a couple
No, well,
questions.
we won't see Ryan for the remainder of the course. He's got some personal issues that he needs to attend to that we can talk to offline, but yeah, he'll be fine. Keep him in your prayers.
We do. All right. So back on target for discussion. Any questions on the security models themselves, or any questions on physical security? Um,
Hmm.
so physical security. Let's go there. Um, when thinking about physical security, what's the first thing that pops into your mind?
In my mind.
Yeah, or John, if you want to chip in too.
Mhm.
For me, I think about the bollards, the man traps, the locks, you
Shit,
know,
somebody asked about contest again.
things they talk about putting in the book about putting your data center in the middle of the facility, not having your your comm closets co-located with heating, things like that come to mind for me with physical security.
That,
I'm making
that
notes. Contest,
I sent you emails about that.
dude. I've been so all over the damn place. I know. Yeah.
Oh, so
The first thing I think of when I think of physical security is whatever. It's the methodological approach, like step by step, right? working in, working out, think about ingress and think about egress. There's sometimes in some certain situations, it's important to keep people in, when somebody, has breached security, so you have time to respond to it. But just, step by step, starting with that's the very first thing that you need to consider when you think about physical security. Site design, right? Where is this going to physically be? Or, what places are we thinking, compare that against what the purpose of the facility is going to be, and then start from there. Like here if it's going to be in Mexico, if it's going to be like, I'm looking across the way over there, that's on a hillside, that's on a mountain, it's got certain security features that I can capitalize on. I know that I'm in an earthquake-ish sort of zone, so that's going to be, some threats. So you go through that analysis just with the very beginning on the site design before you even start talking about construction and building design. That's why it's really important, I think, if you can get security folks involved early on in the process, to take into account, like, oh, I think it's a bad place for us to put a data center, on the beach. We probably shouldn't put a data center on the beach. I mean, I know the beach is really nice and everything, but, maybe there's some flooding problems there or something. I don't know. So that's what I always think of. Just this method. Is that what's the word I'm trying to think of? Methodological? Is that a word? Like step by step, that methodological. Is that a word? I don't even know if that's a word. I'm an author. I should know that. I mean, I'm like important. See, there's the ego again. The hell? Huh. Weird. But does that make sense? I mean, I'm always thinking like step one, where we're thinking about putting this thing and what's the purpose of the facility itself. And then going from there. And then we can go into, building design. We talk about the perimeter. We can talk about approaches to the facility. We can talk about all that stuff, the first, way into the building. I don't like buildings with a lot of entrances and exits. Like buildings necessarily for, secure facilities that are, multi-tenant. I don't know. I could keep rambling. Methodical. Oh, somebody else said methodological. I like that one better. Splat methodological.
It's actually a real word.
I know Kieran said it. I know Kieran is probably that is the word I was probably trying to use, methodical, but I think I like methodological better. A lot of people said methodical. Well, good. I mean, it's good that people are listening. It's good that people understand proper English words better than I do. Methodical. Yeah, methodical. I like that. How about you? What do you think when you think about physical security? What's the first thing pops into your mind, Brian?
For me, it's like the first thing is accessing a building, honestly, is where I go to first. Like that's my, how are you going to get into somewhere? And to relate that in a way, so the first time I'd ever gone to a data center, was one, it was a building in the middle of a city that I had driven past, I don't know how many times, and I never realized it was there, which is really interesting.
Mm-hmm.
It's very nondescript. It's just there. It's, not something you would expect. And then going in there and just how secure, or like the process to get in, right? It was, you need to go in there, you need to show identification. You have a badge. You then walk through a door where you're going to scan your badge. You then get to the next door, which you have to do a palm scan to get in. And then you're in, and then you have to go in and you're going to a specific cage, for instance. Knowing that when you're looking around, there's cameras everywhere. They're tracking your basically every move as you're going through there. They're watching you do what you're doing. That's just one of those things where it was the first time I'd ever been through one. So it was very weird because I'd only seen it, in sort of movies or anything like that, accessing these secure facilities. And even at that, it wasn't like a super, super secure place, not governmental or anything like that. Coincidentally, supposedly is where one of the major video games, online video games at the time was hosted out of, at least it was one of the primary ones. Because I remember them telling me like, hey, do you know this game? And it's like, yeah, I've heard of it. They're like, that's the servers right there on the other side of this wall. And there was a big glass wall where you could see a bunch of other stuff, but it was kind of interesting. But it's
Well, and
just
most people, when they think physical security, I think from a security perspective, they're thinking like Mission Impossible kind of stuff. The most common threats to physical security are natural disasters and insider threat by far. It happens for sure that people physically break into buildings, but it's really rare, honestly, in office facilities and data centers with even like remedial kind of security things, like just having a guard and some blocked doors is usually enough to, because unless it's a targeted threat, and then it's usually like a political kind of thing. But from a money making perspective, ransomware is the way to go. So why the hell am I going to break into your facility and steal something? So I think, if I was designing, a facility, those would be the two main things that I'd be thinking about. Now there's always exceptions. If it's like, big tech, that's got different, dynamics associated with it. Government facilities, different dynamics, law enforcement facilities, but, general run of the mill, most organizations, it would be natural disasters and insider threat. Practically, right? But for the exam, you got to know all the other stuff.
yeah. So
Michelle Piazza says, let's talk OT security as part of physical security beyond cameras, locks, badge access. You want to talk about that?
Yeah. So do you have any more information on exactly what part of OT security you wanted to get into in terms of physical security? So before we dig in, so OT security, John, are you guys, how familiar you guys are with it, or where do we want to go through there? Because there's so many different places you can get in that. It's hard to say.
Yeah, I know. A lot of it comes down to design, right?
Mhm.
I mean, operational technology is stuff that, controls, it's PLCs and controllers and things, for controlling actuators, pressure sensors. I mean, it's all those things that make operational stuff work. And so, yeah, it really depends on what part of it you're talking about. If you're talking like an assembly line and all those pieces, how you would approach security around that. The thing I like most about, I try to do most when I'm talking about operational technology is try to establish perimeters, right? In a lot of designs of OT systems, it's sort of an old school approach where I don't think perimeters were really well defined. It's like if you got into the building, then there's OT shit all over the place, as opposed to, isolating those things, segmenting those things. I think also traditionally people didn't really think what's the value in, it's just a piece of equipment, right? There's no value in it for an attacker. And so it was, oftentimes it's just sitting on a shelf somewhere. You're looking for those kinds of things to, protect against primarily accidental. But yeah, there's a whole different approach for OT security.
Yes, there
generally.
is. So genuine
Biometrics and ethics around airports. Yeah, ethics in airports and governments. Those aren't things that go together really well, I don't think. Biometrics, the thing is with like if you steal my password, I can change my password, right? If you steal my biometric data, what am I going to do? I can't change it. Now, most biometric systems only store the minutia, right? They don't store the entire image. Like it doesn't store my entire face. It stores mathematical mappings of my face, points and mappings, and then it stores that. So then when it sees my face again, it takes those same mappings, runs the same math, compares it with what's in the database to identify me. That's the way it's supposed to work. I guess we don't know a lot of the, all the biometric implementations on whether they actually are storing images. There's that piece. And then there's also the piece like, what are you going to do about it? You can raise awareness, choose not to fly. But it's not only happening in airports, it's happening on the streets. It's happening in every store, not every store, but lots of stores you walk into, banks, casinos, sporting events, arenas,
It's
the way the world is.
so I had someone recount a story to me about they had a friend that would go to casinos and they'd play, I don't know what game it was, but they'd win a lot, and I believe they were card counting was the thing. And they traveled all over the place, like they were earning a lot of money card counting. And this was, I don't know, I think they said it was 15, 20-ish years ago that this happened. And the person since has not continued to do so. Basically they ended up losing a bunch of money. I don't know what it was, but recently, within the last year or so, that person and another person went to a casino in Vegas together. And after being there for a little bit, they actually had a security person walk up to that person. Like I said, it had been years, and they said, "You're not allowed to gamble here. You need to leave." And they hit him on facial recognition. They had it for that long, and they still had that information. They knew who you were probably when you were walking up to the entrance of that casino at that point. But they use it. I wouldn't be surprised if on a daily basis, if you're here out in the public, you're getting it. Some cameras seeing, and you're probably getting in some system, unfortunately. But
Well,
I think
this has definitely become, the United States, China, lots of other countries, definitely the surveillance state. And a lot of it was always sort of there, but it was moving kind of at a much slower pace. And then after 9/11 and the Patriot Act, it was like everybody sold out. The NSA has been collecting, and they've been busted numerous times. It's been in the news, and it just hasn't caused enough outrage, I think, amongst the constituents. The legislators aren't going to do anything about it because their number one job is to get reelected. So unless it becomes an election issue, it's going to continue to be not acted upon. But that's, that's human nature, right? It's not going to be until something comes and, hurts us bad enough, and we'll be like, what? Yeah, fear is a great emotion, man. You can get people to do a hell of a lot of things with fear. If you look at 9/11 and all the surveillance things that have happened post that, and COVID. Yeah, fear's a motivator.
I remember being able to go up to the gate at an airport in the past without having to go through any sort of security or anything like that to see a grandparent off on an airplane. So that was a long time ago, but still that used to happen. Now you can't even get through, or you can't even get close at this point. So
Face ID on phones with biometrics depends on the phone. The implementation for Apple's is actually pretty tight. I don't have any real concerns about using Face ID with Apple stuff. They've been very open and transparent about how they collect and store that data. And it's truly just, it's almost like the one-way hash function. If you remember back that, right? You can build, like the image produces these data points, which are unique to your face. And that's what gets stored. So then when it sees that face again, it calculates the same, math and authenticates you. But you can't go the other way with it, right? You can't take these data points and rebuild my face with it. So it's pretty tight on an Apple. I don't know about Android.
Which Android is fingerprint, right? They don't do face, or maybe they do face now.
I don't know.
I don't. It's been a while since I've had an Android. I just remember I had to use my thumb all the time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I definitely dig. I dig. I'm not an Apple fanboy or anything, but um, they handle security pretty well. You know what I mean? They're pretty transparent about what and how they design things. I've seen many of their talks on how they implement encryption on their devices. It's like, yeah, I kind of like it.
Oh, so Android does Face now. I'm not surprised, honestly.
Not my face. Hell no.
So,
All
um,
right,
so
physical security stuff. What else do we want to talk about? Man traps.
there was.
Have you ever done any social engineering, physical?
I've not.
Hmm.
I'd be way too nervous for that, and it'd be very apparent for me. I'd be standing there, I'd be sweating bullets, like I'd be like, you know, yeah, um, yeah. I just wouldn't be the right person for that. Not like I know we've got some pros that I work with that like they're crazy amazing what they do, and their stories are always awesome too. But no,
Yeah. Well, I think the closer you are to dumb, the easier it is to play dumb. So, it's a little easier for me to do those attacks. Like, what are you doing here? I don't know.
there- I do want to point out, so the different, I'm trying to find where it's at in the book, the specific piece, or even if it's in this chapter, for physical security, the, and it might be somewhere else. I apologize because this book is, so basically the difference between, detection controls, preventative controls, or although we might have
Yeah,
already
very, very,
covered that
very
already.
testable.
Yeah, and that's why I wanted to bring it up because it's something that initially I had trouble with, and I had to spend a lot of time on studying that. Okay, like, is this something that's a detective control? Is it preventive? That sort of thing. There were some really good examples out there, but like I said, I don't know. We might have actually already covered that. I'm checking this chapter to see if it's in here.
Yeah, I
If
think that
it's
was in my
was it
chapter.
was it in
Not,
chapter one or two or earlier?
yeah,
Okay,
yeah. And
cool.
what's
So
really
now,
important I mean, I think you always like the worst risk decisions you ever make are the ones with poor context or no context, right? So, and in this case, when you're talking about preventive, detective, deterrent, corrective, you know, it's got to you got to put the control in context, right? Because a security guard, well, they could be deterrent, they could be preventive, they could be detective, they could be corrective. It really depends on their what they've got for job responsibilities and what have you. But if you're going to ask me, a security guard, you need to get put in context. Give me a scenario, and then tell me, then I can tell you if that's which type of control he or she might be. But I think that's the biggest thing when you're answering those questions in the exam or on um, quiz. Put it in context. Yeah,
context is key in that case.
yeah.
Um, cool. And incognito mode, shave face, definitely.
Somebody sent me a
Remember,
picture. I shaved my face like two years ago because I was
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 that
was I ready for a change.
was that 2 years ago? Because it was right before the mentorship program started up, whenever that was. I remember getting on
Yeah,
the call with you and shaved. I was like, oh dang,
yeah. I think it was 2 years ago
2 years
last
ago.
April. 2 years, yeah, 2 years ago April. It scared the crap out of me, man. There were like three chins under here. I
That's like
shaved it. I'm like,
the
oh, dude. So I saved all my hair and I was like, can I make a wig out of this and like put it back on or something?
that's
Man,
like
I had to
the
wait for it to grow out.
you see those videos online where like a dad will have a small child and they'll shave their face for the first time and the child sees it for the first time and they don't like it because they've never seen their
They start
dad.
bawling.
That yeah. Um,
Yeah, I did not like not having my beard. I couldn't
this is
wait for
this
it to
is
grow back.
this is as far as I get. I don't go any more. It it just and yeah, not me. In fact, I'd probably keep this a bit shorter. I'm not a huge fan of that, but my
Yeah.
wife likes it, so I keep it.
Ironically, my mom doesn't like my beard, so it makes me want to grow it that much more, especially after the last comments that she made about my weight. I should go rub my beard. I should go give her a hug and like just rub my beard in her face. Love you, mom. It's good to see you. I'm an only child, so I can do that.
Cool. So I've got
All
a
right, physical security stuff. What other stuff we got, man?
so really it's the physical security. Um Is fail safe, fail open, fail secure is another one of the
Mm,
topics that's brought up here. Once again, that is very testable as well, as to what the differences are between those and where you would want to be using those different
mhm.
scenarios. The in so it's hard because the book does a good job, and I know Christoph did a really good job at explaining it. I'm pointing it out because make sure you pay attention to that as you're going through the book and knowing what those different items mean and where they're applicable. So,
Mhm.
and also, Christoph covered it as well. People is the number one thing to protect for the CISSP.
Oh, safety.
So,
Yeah,
yeah,
100%.
safety is 100%. So, if you
You're
have
gonna.
a question,
I'm guarantee you're gonna see a question on that,
yeah,
don't you?
I think I'm pretty sure you do. Yeah, I think that's almost guaranteed that you'll see something asking about, here's a scenario, what takes the top priority type of deal. And generally, if the answer is people, then that's going to be, or personnel, people, however they phrase it, humans, that's going to be your primary thing. It's like you can let the place burn down, but as long as all the people are okay, then that's what matters.
Mhm. In physical security, did they cover the different fire extinguisher
Fire extinguishers
letters?
are covered.
ABC,
That was just here. Where did it go? Um, so do you remember what the fire extinguishers are off the top of your head?
ABC, DK.
That sounds right. I'm going to verify for you in a moment here. Oh, here we go. So, yeah. Do you know what each one is for?
Yes. Do you?
Well, I do because I have the book right
You
here in
have it
front
in
of
front of your book. Yeah, there's a mnemonics for it. ABCDK. K is kitchen.
me. Yes.
Ash,
It,
boil,
there you
current,
go.
dense metal, and then K is kitchen.
Yeah,
I
D
can't
is metal.
remember.
So C also could be circuits, if you want to go that route
Electric.
as well. Yeah. Um, so A is common to lots of
Ash.
things. You said ash. So
Okay.
B is liquids. So liquids that you're going to use,
Oils.
yep, oils and such. And then C, electrical equipment. D is metals, so that's a dry powder. And then K is cooking media, like fats and oils and such. So I know that
Gotcha.
we talked about this last time. So it made the comment about, if you have an oil fire in your kitchen, don't put water on it because that's bad. You want to go for that baking soda, something else to stifle it, or put a pan on a lid and just let it burn itself out.
Smother it.
Um, Yep. So I do want to talk about something that is we talk about it and I'm curious what your thoughts are, Evan and John. So fire suppression versus fire sprinklers. Um, when you look up the definitions of those, fire suppression is generally going to be like a gas system that's going to remove, say, oxygen from the air or burn out the fire, where a fire sprinkler is going to be like a water-based system. So um, this is a discussion I've had with different people. Any thoughts on it? Like, or would you, do you guys draw a line between the two? I'm just curious, or if it's just me being way too like splitting hairs on it.
I think it depends. Depends on the facility. Depends if there's people going to be there. Sometimes you've got those remote, like where there's nobody there. It's like a remote switching facility, or something. In that case, choke the fire out, using carbon, which one is carbon monoxide, carbon dioxide, whichever one. That starves the fire, right? I mean, if you starve the fire of oxygen, it kills it. So you could deploy something like that because it's super effective, puts it out right away. But I would never put that, in an office space, where there's people operating. So I think you just have to consider, the environment. Most data centers today are still pre-action wet pipe or pre-action dry pipe. Pre-action means there has to be an action that happens before it fills the pipe, and then there's got to be another action that happens to release the valve on. So you have a time to react, but that's kind of surprising, I think, to most people that water is the most common, fire suppression in data centers.
I will say the data centers that I've been in, it's been gas systems that I've seen. Because
Halon,
you'll see, yeah, Halon, or isn't Halon no longer used? Wasn't it replaced by something else?
the Montreal
Yeah.
Accord, or whatever the hell that was.
They talk about it in the book, but it becomes toxic at 900 degrees Fahrenheit.
Gotcha.
So it's not very environmentally friendly.
Gotcha. So that would make sense then. The but yeah, so like in the data centers, you'd see like big huge
M200.
tanks sitting there that were marked, as these are the gas canisters for the fire system as part of the fire system. So we'll say that if you guys are in a situation where you need some sort of gas system for a server room or something to protect it, there are certain situations where you are. Make sure you get the proper say contractors and such in to make sure that those systems are used properly, because there are some restrictions that you have. Like for instance, you need to be able to seal that room if that gas system is going to be tripped off for any reason. You also need a big, huge red button that if someone's in the room and it's going to kick off, that they can hit that button and turn it off as well. So there's a lot of security that needs to be put into place if you're going to use a gas system. So
Yeah, and it's got to follow code too.
yep, it has to follow codes, and there are very specific contractors that you need to work with to be able to do that properly. So I had an experience with one of those contractors where they did not do it properly, unfortunately, and it caused a lot of issues for a server room.
Balazs says, in FBI data center, you are accompanied all the time by a guard. There are a lot of places where you can't enter the data center, period. I was doing audits a while back. Wells Fargo was sending me to go do assessments of data centers, where they had data, and one of them was First Data. Under no circumstances would you be allowed to enter the data center there. They had little peepholes that you could, so you could witness and you could audit, and they had them strategically placed. So they knew ahead of time what questions people were going to ask about the data center. So they had, the peepholes strategically placed so you could see the thing that they knew you were going to ask about. And then they told me that the facility, I think it's outside of Omaha, the facility is built to withstand a direct hit from a 737.
Wow.
And so I said, have you tested that? They're like, no. I'm like, well, how the hell do you really know? Come on, let's test it. They didn't think that was funny.
I think maybe not that level of a data center, but I think it would be interesting to get a tour of one of the high, like the ones that I've been to are just kind of general, like anybody can rent space in them type of deals, but for more secure, but still somewhat accessible data centers, that'd be awesome to get sort of a tour of that to see what that looks like. What they can tell you that's in place, because I'm sure that there's things that they won't tell you in terms of security, because it's proprietary or need to know type of deal. But it'd be interesting to have a tour of something like that.
Yeah, their generator room, it reminded me of Star Wars. It was like as far as the eye could see, like huge, and I don't know how big they were, but huge cat generators just as far as you could see. And this catwalk that just went across, it's crazy, man. A lot of money. But I guess First Data like processes, I don't know, some percentage of the world GDP because they do all the credit card processing and payment processing and a whole bunch of really, I guess, important stuff. But really impressive data center for sure. Most data centers you've never seen before because nobody knows where they are. Like US Bank's data centers, nobody knows where that one is. Well, we might now, but yeah, it's kind of cool.
It is. Like I said, the one that I went to, I've driven by it before. And I never noticed that it was even a building there. Like, I mean, it was just so nondescript. It's just, it's there, but you never pay attention to it because why would you? There's no reason.
Yeah. Sometimes you can tell by the air handlers, on top of on the roof and things, but yeah, they get pretty good at covering those up too, or putting something around it. It's cool
That's cool.
stuff, man.
It is. It is. So, record out in Utah where they're building a NASA or NSA data center. That's cool. But I have to wonder what sort of
The fact that he knows that's starting to make me question where Riker comes from. You're not supposed to know that.
Well, it makes me wonder what sort of security is already in place if they're building it right now around it. Like, how much do they control people going in and out of there for the construction and what they can use there and all of that? I mean, because obviously they've got to worry about just even the construction, the security of the construction of it. What was it? There was an embassy that they had built and they had put bugs even in like the cement. Do you know that one?
Mhm.
And,
Yeah, I'm not going
and
to tell you more about it. You'd have to keep telling about it.
okay, so basically
I'm
they're
not,
building.
the overlords aren't going to get me on this one.
All right, well, look at me, I guess. So building an embassy, I don't. I think it was the U.S. was building an embassy somewhere. I don't know where. And basically they had contractors coming in. They were doing the work, and they had put basically. Oh, was it Russia?
Yeah,
Oh,
they got
okay,
it.
that then.
But we did
Uh,
the same thing. We had when Russia was building their new embassy in DC, we built a tunnel under it. And
that doesn't
that was
surprise me.
part of what's his name, Robert Hansen. That was part of Robert Hansen and whatever that other guy was. They disclosed that to the Russians as part of their spying thing.
Interesting. Yeah, I'm honestly not surprised. It's crazy because you hear about like, oh, these guys did this. We're doing it too. They're all doing it to each other and on that stuff. It's the game that they play.
It's kind of interesting. I mean, it's like super spy stuff, right?
Yep.
There's always like stuff that happens, that nobody else knows about. You know, there was a huge like Microsoft, Amazon, Google, they were all building super sophisticated stuff in Des Moines, Iowa. You know, started maybe 5, 6 years, maybe more than that now, like 8 years ago. There's a whole bunch of stuff in Des Moines, Iowa, of all places, because Des Moines, Iowa, is pretty safe from natural disasters. For the most part, it's a great place for
It's
them to build.
mostly tornadoes there, right?
Yeah, but tornadoes are pretty easy to protect against a data center. Outside of power, but now with the generators and things.
Yep. It's earthquakes from around here, which a good one could cause some issues, but that's why they don't build a whole lot of them around here, I'm sure.
I guess we had an earthquake here last week.
Did you?
Like off, I guess so. I didn't feel it. I don't know what I was doing, but my wife, we were on our way like dinner or something, and she's like, "Did you feel that earthquake earlier today?" I'm like, "No, I didn't feel anything." And she's like, "I felt it because she was, I think, laying down at the time, and she felt it." So I called bullshit on her. I'm like, "You're lying. There's no way." And then I looked it up. I'm like, "Oh my god, there was an earthquake. I totally missed it." And it was kind of big too. Let me see if I can find it still.
Did I tell you about the one we had here, what, 2 or 3 weeks ago now?
No, you had
It
one?
was yeah, it was a good one. And my phone was sitting here next to me. It just started buzzing like crazy. And by the time I looked over at it, I saw the word earthquake, and that's when everything started shaking. It was a short one. I didn't even move. I was just like, oh, okay.
Really?
Yeah, I've been through enough of them that it's if it goes a long time, that's when I start to get worried. If it's just a
Right.
short one, it's like there's nothing you can do. If it happens, it happens, unfortunately.
Well, yeah, what are you supposed to do during an earthquake? I don't think I've been trained in anything with that.
Uh, Duck and cover is what they say. Um,
Duck and
get
cover.
'em- yeah, ducking something solid in case something like falls or that sort of thing. They used to say door frames were a good one. I don't know about that now. I remember someone saying that, that's not as effective as they originally thought. Or go outside is also another one, and stay away from like, if there's a 5-story building, try and get away from it type of deal. Um, but
Yeah. Magnitude 5.8 earthquake
that's a good sized earthquake.
off the coast of Jalisco, 223 kilometers south of, it's not too far away from here. Yeah. 5.8. I didn't feel it. My wife did. So once again, I called bullshit and I was wrong. I've, that's the thing, man. All these years, I've been married 22 years. I've never, ever once won an argument with my wife. I even tried. I was like, okay, I even told her, like, I am going to try to win one, just one before I die. And so I had the logic all figured out. I had everything and still lost. I ended up spending a night in one of the other bedrooms because of it too. So yeah, there's no way.
So
We'll never learn.
you will one day. I believe in
Think
you.
so? Mm-hmm.
So I'm curious, in terms of physical security, do you know how to pick locks?
Yeah, yeah. So
Do you
yeah.
do it often or just kind of know how?
I used to do it just for fidgety things. Um, I haven't probably months. Yeah.
I've got, I've got one of the like the lock pick sets with like the training lock picks that you could use for it that I picked up
Mm-hmm.
well a while ago. It got put into a backpack at some point when I moved, and I honestly I don't know where it's at now. So that was years ago, so it's been a long time. I will say like when I went to DEF CON is when I got that. It was really cool because they had the lock picking village to learn how to pick locks. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so it's one of those things where when we do assessments, what we'll do is we'll be walking through a building and people will say like, here's doors to this or whatever, and like, oh yeah, we keep this area locked. And what we'll always do is, have you tried it? Have you tried, just pushing on the door and opening it? Because we're not supposed to do it ourselves now. Um,
Right.
because it could qualify as a physical pen test at that point if we do it. But you'd be surprised at how often people will be like, "Oh yeah, it's locked," and they'll just hit the handle and they'll open the door, thinking that it's supposed to be a locked door. Happens quite a bit, honestly, or just like pushing on a door and it just didn't click shut.
Mm-hmm.
That is one of the things that, testing your physical security is very important in terms of physical security. So just as a note on
Right.
that. Um, let's see. That's the big pieces that I wanted to go through here.
Do we have
Well,
any quiz questions?
we've got the ones in the book. I don't have any specific, although I will say, so in Discord, I've been posting the question of the day, which I've
Mm.
been trying to focus on the chapters, like whatever the upcoming subjects are going to be. Where did Discord? So today's question is going to be what access control model best supports mandatory separation of duties?
Mandatory
We've got,
separation of duties.
we've
Okay.
got RBAC, DAC, so DAC, MAC, MAC, and ABAC, ABAC. So those are your options, which if you guys in chat aren't doing it, go check out the question of the day channel. Feed me answers. Tell me, tell me what they are, which let me get the answer here. Because I never look at the answer until I actually post what the answer is the day after I post the question. So any thoughts on that? RBAC, DAC, MAC, or ABAC? For mandatory separation of duties.
We have a bunch of RBACs. People are saying RBACs. That role-based access control.
I want to use RBAC as well, but Mac is kind of throwing me off.
So I will say that mandatory separation of duties, I will point out that specific part of the question. So, and we've got RBAC, DAC, MAC, mandatory access control, and ABAC. Just saying. So I will say that some of these questions I'm not super thrilled with. There's a lot of potential ambiguity in these where it's like, I can make a case for this one. Although I will say when you are testing for the CISSP, most of the time on the questions, you are going to have two answers that you're going to have to choose from, and you're going to have to choose the best answer based off of the information that you're given. So when looking at these questions, you can also apply that. What's the best answer?
Mm-hmm.
The answer is, what's that?
Oh, go ahead, keep going. No, I'm wondering what happens if I do this.
So the answer in this case is going to be C, which is Mac. And where did you go? The reasoning behind that one is Mac.
That didn't work well.
What did you do? Oh,
Copied and pasted a test question in there. The formatting looks like crap.
Hey, I can still read it though. I mean, what is the most effective deterrent against tailgating into a secure area? Security camera, turnstile, security guard, or access card system. So Mac, yes. C, Mac is the answer. So going back to that one, Mac enforces strict policies and is best suited for mandatory separation of duties. And they're specifically citing government and military settings. So
Mac is the right answer to your first one. Before I interrupted by copying and pasting whatever the hell I did. What is the most effective deterrent? So deterrent, not preventive, deterrent against tailgating into a secure area. A security camera, turnstile, security guard, or access card system. I would say the security guard. What do you guys think?
I agree.
Yep.
Because
we're on agreement. Should I do another one? I'll do the stupid copy and paste again. All right, let's go. It's that one.
So which type of fire suppression system is best for data center where water damage must be avoided? Wet pipe sprinkler, halon, CO2, or dry pipe sprinkler?
I'm gonna go CO2.
CO2. So I go CO2 as well because halon is not what we want, and then wet pipe is obviously that's wet. We don't want that, and dry pipe is also wet. It's just that the pipes are not charged at all times until they're needed to be charged.
Need to be charged.
Yep.
All right. So which one did we say?
Where did it go?
CO2.
CO2.
C, which is CO2.
Yep, I agree. CO2. All right, let's go to the next one. This is kind of fun now, isn't it? I mean, I think we got two right.
We did get two right.
I don't know. What's this one?
So, honestly, I enjoy doing questions like this even when I get them wrong.
What's the main advantage of using man traps in secure facilities? A, allows faster employee access. B, enables biometric scanning. C, prevents piggybacking. D, increases employee accountability.
See it out.
C?
I agree.
All right. Oh, here's a good one. Maybe. Bam. What's that? Did I push it? Oh, too many characters in this one.
The questions are showing up in YouTube chat, which might be a slight delay on it for you guys. So apologize for that.
YouTube chat, what?
So,
Oh,
just
because we answered it too fast.
yeah, we answered it pretty quick.
Damn it. Okay.
You have to go into the live chat, David, if you're not seeing the questions.
Yeah, if you're not seeing the chat, then you need to bring it up. It'll
This
be
one.
there. I think which one best defines CPTED. Computer returns. Yeah, so it's posting before. Yeah, there's about a 30-ish second delay, I believe, in the stream. So that's probably why you're seeing it. So we should probably discuss it more a little bit to let people catch up with us.
Yeah, stop trying to be so damn smart. I don't even
Sorry.
know the answers to these questions. No, I'm just kidding. I don't know. Which of the following best defines CP dead?
I've heard it referred to as septed.
Yeah.
So as a way to use some time. So last week when we were talking about the pronunciation of CISSP. So how do you say that? Is it CISSP, CISSP, CISSP? Do you have a preference, Evan? I'm just curious to go back.
Yeah, I've always just called it CISSP.
I've always done the same.
Yeah, some people call it CISSP. I've heard CISSP and CISSP.
We put up a poll in YouTube chat to see what people prefer, and that was by far, I think it was like around 75% of the people said CISSP is the way that they pronounce it.
Ready for another question?
Yep.
We didn't answer that one.
Yeah, we haven't. Well, yeah, we haven't answered the one before that. So, what best defines CP TED?
CP TED. CP TED. I don't know. C.
C.
Threat prevention through environmental design.
Correct. All right. These are more wordy, so I have to take them like this. Boom, boom, boom. There's A.
Primary goal physical of perimeter security. Detect unauthorized movement. To restrict access to sensitive data.
C.
CISSP.
D. There we go.
Protect digital assets from cyber attacks to prevent unauthorized access to the facility. All right, so I'm gonna play this one out like I would if I was sitting for the exam to give you guys an idea of my thought process here. So obviously you're gonna read the question, right? And if you guys have anything to add to this, like throw it out there because it'd be helpful. So I always read the question twice. And so what is the primary goal of perimeter security? Trying to identify like the very specifics, because sometimes there's going to be words in there that are going to change how you answer. Then go through and read all those answers. So detect unauthorized internal movement, restrict access to sensitive data, protect digital assets from cyber attacks, prevent unauthorized access to the facility. The next process I go through is elimination. So which ones aren't the answers? So detect unauthorized internal movement, that doesn't make sense for perimeter security. Restrict access to sensitive data, maybe, there could be sensitive items inside the perimeter. To protect digital assets from cyber attacks, definitely not, because I'm assuming that this is physical perimeter security. And to prevent unauthorized access to the facility. Well, this is the perimeter. So if you're going to breach that perimeter, you're going to get unauthorized access into it. So in this case, I would go D for this one. And that's the way I talk it out in my head when I'm reading those questions. So
I like it. It's very methodological. What you just said there. All right, 6. Boom. Boom. Copy, paste, copy, paste, copy, paste. 6. Having troubles. I don't know if I'm having a stroke or if I'm just old. Probably a little bit of both.
Having a stroke is one of my biggest fears in life, or a heart attack. Right.
Yeah.
Scares the heck out of me, man.
All right. So which lighting strategy is most effective for deterring intruders? And when I read these things, I always read the key, and I'm looking for the keywords right here. deterrence, right? Not prevention, not correction, all that other stuff. So bright lighting in all areas, motion activated lighting, continuous low lighting, colored lighting to distract intruders. So which one of those would be most likely to deter an attacker?
There's a lot of B's in the comments, but I like A. I mean, B, I can go, between the two. I'm down to, like, Brian's talked about the 50-50 rule, because if there's bright lighting, no, people are going to less likely to try to come in there and, do something that they could be easily identified. But the motion activated lighting is going to identify if someone's there, but you also have to have people there or CCTV. It's a lot of variables in that one. But like you were saying, keyword, most effective for deterrence.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with you on that one. I go A as well, because it's motion activated. They're not going to know that it's there until it's activated, so it's not going to deter at that point in time. That's your past deter to do that. Continuous low lighting is just not enough, and then colored lighting and to distract. You're only going to distract them with colored lighting if they're gamers and they need RGB on their systems. So that's my thought process.
Yeah. So what did you guys say? What did you guys agreed on an answer? Which one did you agree on?
A.
Yeah, A.
I think it's B.
You think it's B?
I do think it's B.
Why?
Because because if I'm an attacker and I'm, usually you're mapping out the facility. So I would be looking for things that, ways around the bright light. The motion activated light would certainly deter it because it surprises the attacker. As you're approaching, it's like, oh crap. You know what I mean? So I think you could go with A as well, but I know for me, if I was the attacker, B would be
it. So
for me, it would be.
Is there an official answer for that one? Is it?
No, I don't think so. Yeah, no, I don't have answers for these. I just made them up.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
But that's why I would choose that, would be because of that. So B.
Gotcha.
B is the answer. When I wrote the question, that's the answer I was looking for. But the important part is, and it's the important part of taking the test questions as well, is working through the logic and justifying why you would choose what you chose. You're not going to find, and it also it's like a mental, what do you call that? Like exercise, right? Exercising the brain, because you also wouldn't find an answer to that in the book specifically, right? So the fact that you could defend why your answer would be A, I think is the point, honestly.
Gotcha.
And the fact that I could justify why my answer would be B, that's also the point. The continuous low lighting, that's not going to deter really anybody. It's very easy to sneak around in the shadows. The colored lighting, colors don't have anything to do really with distracting intruders, at least in places I've been, So 7, we'll do 3 more. And
cool.
So here's 7. Why are magnetic door locks combined with other physical security controls? So here's that one. A, they are expensive to maintain. B, what?
I was going to say, so Chris made the comment, can you argue your point for the test? So unfortunately, they will not let you argue.
But that's, no, but that's not a clear test question anyway. You know what I mean? It's, if you were to do the test, I think that would probably, well, I mean, I'm justifying B anyway, so I would answer B and yeah. I mean, if you wanted to justify something for the test, you'd have to extract something specific from the book. and it'd have to be so direct, but that's not how test questions are. There are going to be lots of test questions that you're going to get on the exam that in your mind, it's the right answer. And it might even be the right answer practically, but it'll still be the wrong answer based on whoever wrote the test question. The point isn't to get all the answers correct. It's to pass. I think if you can consistently, logically work through why your answers are the answers that they are, you'll pass the test.
Yeah, I can't argue with that. But
ChatGPT said, "Hey, Freddie, way to go. That is actually what I'm using to create these test questions."
so magnetic door locks combined with other physical security controls. They're expensive to maintain. I don't know if they're actually expensive to maintain. I've never thought about that. Anyway, they require constant power and can fail. I'd say that that's true. They cannot be used with biometric access. I don't think that that's true. And they're invisible to most users. And I don't think that that matters, honestly, if they're invisible or not, because it doesn't matter if it's visible or not for security. In this case, I'd have to go with B, being that they require constant power because you need that power to have that magnet work, because that's how those magnets work, is if they have power, they're locked. When you unlock them, they stop power so that you can open a door, right? So that's my final answer, is that they require constant power and can fail, and B.
Yep.
I agree. What is the best way to protect against physical theft of servers? Put them in the cloud, man.
I thought
the cloud is
the
just
best
some
way,
hypothetical place, right? It's not really in a server data center anywhere.
I thought the best way was to just not have servers. What's the best way to protect them?
Well, it's hard to steal something when it doesn't exist. Yeah, I
This
suppose.
is true.
Yes, they do fail open. Magnetic
Yeah.
locks do fail open.
Yeah. I've actually seen some magnetic locks where is for security purposes, where they have a sensor on the inside where they can sense heat, and if they see the heat getting close to the door, they'll also unlock as well. Or maybe it's a temperature change. Maybe it's not strictly heat. So there's YouTube videos on that one if you guys are interested. So best way to protest against physical theft of a server, BIOS password protection. I'll let one of you guys, if you guys want, take this one. I took the last one. If not, I will do it.
No, I think John should go because we need to let John talk some more.
The best way to protect against physical theft of servers? I'm gonna go with locking the server room.
Yep.
I don't know, man. BIOS passwords, that's pretty secure, right? Sorry, I'm being a butt. I apologize.
You're being facetious.
Well, I could really
Facetious.
I like the CCT surveillance, but again, you have to be paying someone to be watching that CCTV to stop the intruder.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think protect implies prevention too, right? And so the CCTV would kind of imply detection. But in the word protect, I could see how you'd fit that in there too. Yeah, I see where you're going. But I agree. I think it's B as well.
Yeah, B, final answer.
Final answer. What show is that from?
Millionaire one, right?
Who Wants to Be a Millionaire? Yep.
Ah.
Yeah, because they had to have some mechanics so that they had to make them say, "Is that your final answer?" So that they couldn't change their answer once they said it. Isn't that the use case there?
Yeah, and well, they would get like they'd get a lifeline or a phone a friend. I don't know. I think it's probably 3 or 4 different hosts of that show.
What's that? I've never been
Which
one of
the following is not considered a physical security control? Security badge, surveillance camera, motion detector, role-based access control. I can touch 3 of the 4 of those things. The 4th one is only a logical control. So So I'm going to go with D.
I agree. Which I wanna just point out something on this one. This is one of those ones where if I saw something like this on a test, I would immediately go to D and I would be like, yes, I'm doing it, I'm sending it. Be careful when doing that. Make sure you read that question again, no matter how sure you are what that answer is.
Mhm.
Also, if you think the answer is A, always read all of the other answers as well, because there might be a better answer than that first one. So just saying, I can't stress this enough. Read everything like multiple times if you can during the test.
Mhm. Yep. And Riker's right. I mean, role-based access control could be used with physical access controls, but you're reading more into the question, and it's not the best answer of the 4 options. So I agree with him. During a fire, which physical security feature can become a safety hazard if not properly configured? Safety. That's important. Fire alarms, sprinkler systems. Oh, there's that one.
Hey, there's that one.
Yeah, I get you, Riker. So I thought I do that a lot. So I get you, man. During a fire, which physical security feature can become a safety hazard if not properly configured? One of these is going to trap people and kill them.
Yep.
That's a
I think
bad
that
thing.
this question is awesome based off of what we had talked about not long ago, a couple minutes ago. It fits perfectly.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
So
So
C's the answer. Yep.
C is the answer. Yep.
All right. Well, good. That was some test questions. And I just, honestly, I just use ChatGPT. I think for this kind of stuff, it's an easy study tool to just think through. So I just asked create 10 CISSP practice questions for physical security. And then that's what it was.
Perfect.
I didn't ask for the answers or explanations too, but you could have added that if you wanted, additional stuff. And you could just keep creating questions and keep.
Sure.
So what was the final? The final what? Answer for the final question? C. If you mean
So
like the final score, like we scored 100%, 10 out of 10, basically. I
so,
think.
just as a note, as another CISSP exam, so expect that the questions that you will get out of ChatGPT are not quite the same. Actually, no practice test question that you come across will be the same as what's on the exam. So just expect that going into it. When you sit there at the computer and you read your first question, you're going to be like, holy cow, this is not what I
I've
was
never seen
expecting.
this one before. Yeah.
Yep. And just they're structured differently. They're much more. I don't even know what the best way to say it is. But they're different. You just don't see anything like it out there on the practice exams and such that you're going to see. I know, like, say, for instance, I know that for Microsoft, there was people that I knew that they actually had the exact questions for the exam that they were able to study off of, which is unethical to a massive degree. I don't suggest doing that, but I know that that kind of stuff is out there. If you guys see anything like that for the CISSP exam, assume that it is not real, because that information is very much protected. And also, if you do use that to study and you take the exam, you are breaking the ethics clause of the CISSP right off the get-go. Right.
And
That's
selling
all.
yourself short, man. You guys are all, I mean, everybody that's here is more than capable of passing the exam. If you put in the effort and, if you've set your mind to doing it, you'll do it. Don't sell yourself short by looking for those kinds of ways.
Cool.
I wanted to bring up real quick. I had posted 2 links in the chat, a bit up without any context whatsoever. It was in response to a question that someone asked about having a data center with glass walls. And I typically wouldn't be averse to that, you know, if it were in the middle of the facility, except for I had just watched a video today, a cybersecurity labs video from at the Ben Gurion University, where they were leaking sensitive data from air-gapped workstations via the screen brightness. And then the other video is where they're using a drone through the window of the facility, and just reading the data that's coming off of, you know, the flashes that are coming off the computer. So I thought that that was incredibly interesting. If you guys wanted to, you know, talk about if you have any thoughts on, you know, glass data centers.
Yeah, I mean, it's got to be the purpose of the data center. You know, if it's, some people build data centers that are just for show, you know what I mean? To show off to customers and things like that. But I wouldn't, you know, things that happen in the data center, I don't want you to know. I don't want you to know the footprint of the data center. I don't want you to be able to assess what's where, you know, potential weaknesses. Yeah, just wall it off. There's nothing there for you to see.
I don't even want people to know that there's a data center there. Honestly, like there's no reason for it. I will say that I think the example that I gave in the data center that I was at, there was a huge glass wall that you could see on the other side that, you know, you could see servers and such, but it wasn't like, I know that you had mentioned the flashing and such. It wasn't, you couldn't see that sort of thing from there. You could see that there were servers over there, but not that, you weren't that close to it. Although maybe with a good camera you could have, but this was 20 years ago. So a different scenario. And also, if you had a camera there in a server or in a data center like that, I'm sure security would be on you really quick, because they're watching everything you do
Yeah.
in there.
But I think, you know, for those people that have those data centers that are, you know, up there for marketing, you know, I think it's, that's legit. They probably, I mean, I would, if I was the security person, I would probably, depending on the type of company, maybe we have this marketing data center, it's kind of a mock one, so people are impressed by it, but our real data center is kind of somewhere else.
Yeah,
Just for that purpose.
yeah, I would hope that's what they would do, or at least maybe those servers aren't as sensitive as, like, say, servers that would be sitting in your data center, that sort of thing, if you're going to have that.
And a lot of times you can, I mean, depending on the setup, I mean, you can even shoulder surf potentially from a window, you know, or walk by with your camera, or, you know, these things have gotten so good, you know, walk by, just snap some pictures and then zoom it in and, you know, be amazed at things you can probably find.
Indeed.
And then one last thing I'm gonna post in the chat right quick, is I'm a mnemonic for the common criteria evaluation assurance levels, EL 1 through 7. It's functionally, structurally, methodically designed, tested, verified, and formally perfected. I found that very hard to wrap my way around, but that's just one mnemonic that I found in Chat GPT. It's funny, the Chat GPT on my phone and the one on my computer gave me completely different mnemonics, but find one that works for you and, you know, just commit it to memory.
Yeah, good one. Good advice. All right, I'm gonna go eat dinner. Find my wife. She's around here somewhere. And my mother. Holy crap, I gotta avoid her though.
All right, well, have a good one, gents. Take it easy, ladies and gentlemen. Have a good one. Hit us up in Discord if you guys have any questions.
I think it's Brad next week. Yeah.
Yes, it is. So, which I know that he's got his recordings done. So I've been asking Brandon on our site, being like, hey, when are they going to be up so we can post? So I will continue to ask if we can get those up ASAP.
Yeah, he's you can use Copilot too. So Priya, you can use, but it's just an example. Definitely not the rule. There's all kinds of exceptions.
Yeah.
All right, have a good one.
All right.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, everyone. Take care.
I ended the stream.
Cool.
And I'll see you guys later. John, I like you here.